Good afternoon, Mark Sudduth here with your Hurricane Pro and Hurricane HD video blog for Monday, May 20th, 2013. The first 10 days of really the beginning of when tropical cyclones typically start their ramping up is May 10th through the 20th. We've looked at this slide before. Recently, we had 8 development areas over the last 100 years in the eastern Pacific and 8 development areas here in the Atlantic Basin. And as fate would have it, we had Alvin, Tropical Storm Alvin, that did form out here in the eastern Pacific in recent days. It tracked off towards colder water out here and has since dissipated. Now we are just a little over 10 days away from the start of the Atlantic hurricane season, and thus the next 10 days, this last third of the month of May, we see a more significant increase in activity here in the eastern Pacific, quite a clustering here right off of Mexico. But then we also notice a small but notable increase in activity over the past 100 years. That's what climatology is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 development points in this 10-day time frame off the coast of, we'll call it the Yucatan, Cuba, Honduras, Nicaragua, that area, the Northwest Caribbean Sea. And then we've had in the last few years developments more subtropical in nature off the coast of the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. The point is that we are starting to get towards the time of year when tropical cyclones, though very rare to occur this time of year, they are more likely to occur than the winter months. And thus we begin the hurricane season June 1st. It's a calendar date. Nature doesn't always stick to calendars, as you well know. Hopefully this year it will. However, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. We will examine some potential for development down the road. So let's look at sea surface temperatures. This is the departures from average or normal. I don't like to use the word normal. What's normal anyway, right? But your departures from average, all of this orange, yellow, and red through here between Africa and the Lesser Antilles, extending into the Caribbean as well. Water temperatures running well above normal, almost a degree Celsius on average, all across this region here, what we call the MDR, or the main development region of the deep tropics. These tropical waves come off, they traverse the Atlantic, they take advantage of this warm water, the unstable atmosphere out there, and they can develop into some pretty significant hurricanes. That's later in the hurricane season, August, September, and into October. Notice, too, the cold water signature relative to average in the Pacific, right along the equator here, your equatorial Pacific waters running below average, and that is a sign of, in some cases, a La Nina event, or the cooling of the Pacific compared to average. This really isn't that strong nor sustained yet, so it's being called a neutral signal with a very warm Atlantic compared to average. Probably going to see a very busy hurricane season. The Gulf of Mexico, actual sea surface temperatures, these are not departures from average. These are your actual sea surface temperatures, and what I'm looking for is anything on this side of the scale that's 26 degrees Celsius, or roughly 80 degrees if you round it up, Fahrenheit, and that is delineated right here. This is your isotherm, or line of equal temperature, and this is all 80 degrees, close to it, or higher. Even up here along the northern Gulf Coast, water temperature is starting to warm up. Almost warm enough to go swimming and enjoy the Gulf. Certainly that's the case down here in the Florida Bay area and in the Florida Keys. Notice the snaking look to the temperature profile here, kind of snakes up. This is the Gulf Loop Current, and that is very warm water that gets injected into the Gulf of Mexico from the Caribbean Sea. It is a very interesting phenomenon. You ought to Google that sometime. Search it, loop current for the Gulf of Mexico. This can play a very prominent role in hurricane intensification later in the season. Hopefully we won't have to deal with it. But this is something we will be watching, as it did play a big role in intensification in the '05 season, just as an FYI. So we'll be watching that closely. Also, the MJO, we can watch this closely as well. The Madden-Julian Oscillation. This is basically your period of fertility in the tropics, that's the way I like to call it, of upward motion or enhanced convection, where the atmosphere is more conducive to rising motion in the atmosphere as opposed to sinking and drying air. This is a more diffluent rising motion to the atmosphere, and this can be tracked and forecast, and it's easy to watch what's going on with it and what the forecast is. This is from the GFS and its ensemble member groups. Different members of the GFS run with slightly different input parameters to give you, in some cases, drastic output values. Hopefully that's not the case, but sometimes that happens. The green, I believe, is the operational model. All these yellows here, the spaghetti plots as we call it, kind of looks like angel hair pasta, doesn't it? Those are the different ensemble members, but the idea is that the ensemble mean, the average here, that I've painted in red, is heading towards, and you can see it real clearly here, the Western Hemisphere and Africa. So phases 1 and 2 are the areas that we watch for development in the Atlantic Basin, Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean Sea region, and it looks like the MJO will be heading into those phases here by the time we get to the first week of June. This goes out through June the 3rd, and beyond that time frame, you can just extrapolate that we should see a fairly healthy MJO pulse heading into that first full week of June. Therefore, it's possible that the window for development could open somewhere in this region during the first 10 days of June. It makes sense. Will it come together and happen? We'll have to wait and see. Some of the very long-range models way out beyond day 10 are starting to show a lowering of the pressures down in this region, and that is your lower air pressure convergence that you need at the surface. Water temperatures are certainly going to be warm enough in this region, and then we have that favorable upward motion pattern coming through. We already have a pretty good intertropical convergence zone stretching through this region just north of the equator. Pretty healthy disturbance that's come off of Africa way too soon to be worrying about those, but that's a pretty stout system for this time of year. So I think as we get closer to and beyond the 1st of June, especially that first 10 days, this will be the region. And this is nothing unusual. It's not out of the ordinary. You don't usually have it every year, but we will watch and see if everything comes together for this area. Probably a big rainmaker no matter what happens, as an increase in moisture and upward motion will foster the development of tropical convection. So the Caymans, the Yucatan, and parts of Central America, I think at the very least are in for a more rainy pattern as we get past Memorial Day and into that first period of the hurricane season, the first several days. So as we approach the season, let me give you a little bit of advice based on almost 20 years of experience. Trust me when I tell you, you want to get your generator checked and maintained now. If you've had a generator that's never been out of the box, go ahead and crank it, fill it with gas, crank it, understand it, learn how to use it, and then learn how to keep it maintained. If you've had a generator and you've used it before, especially in the last year, take it to a small engine repair shop in your area, get it looked at, get the gasoline drained out of it, get that carburetor checked. If you need your generator this year, you don't want to have to be calling a small engine repair shop 3 or 2 days before a hurricane's coming, or even a week for that matter, because you're more than likely going to be left without a generator, and that will add a lot of stress to your life, and you don't need that. Also, now, before anything is even out there, talk with your insurance agent. Don't put it off. Give them a call if they're not in your town, if you buy your homeowner's insurance online or you just never met with your agent. Give somebody at your company a call and just go over what's covered, what's not. Who do I talk to if I have a claim in the event of a hurricane? Tell them you want to be hurricane educated as far as insurance goes. And finally, related to that subject, take an inventory of all of your belongings now. Get that digital camera out, your iPhone, your Android device, your iPad, your Android tablet, your digital camera, borrow it from your kids, whatever. Take pictures of all of your belongings and note which rooms they're in. You can even relabel those pictures. So you take a picture of your living room, relabel it. Living room with TV, Nintendo Wii or whatever you have in there, PlayStation, you got it, you name it. Do that stuff now, and that'll help alleviate some stress later. Believe me, these are the things that take time, and when a hurricane is approaching, time seems to be compressed, and it runs out very quickly. Believe me, I know. Now, National Hurricane Preparedness Week coming up, starting Sunday, going through the following Saturday, June the 1st. Visit hurricanes.gov, hurricanes.gov for more information on that. Again, I'm Mark Sudduth, hurricanetrack.com, my website. Always a pleasure to produce these videos for you. I'll be back with another one for you tomorrow.